So the other day we discussed about the statistical internal order. Basically, there are two types of internal orders. One is the statistical internal order. The other one we have is the real internal order. So in the statistical internal order, it does not require to I mean, we don't require to settle the statistical internal order at the end of the month, whereas the real internal orders ought to be settled at the end of the month. The second point we have is the posting is going to be statistical in the case of statistical internal order and real in the case of real internal orders. That's a basic difference. And settlement profile is required in the case of real internal order, whereas the same thing is not required in the case of statistical internal orders. So we have seen while posting the transaction, the moment we take the internal order, system is expecting a real CO object and we used to consider cost center and while posting the transactions. So that's about the statistical internal order. Okay, in the order master data, so what are we going to do? We are going to create a new order type for real internal order. Of course, we can use the same thing, but still I want to have a clear indication about the statistical and real. I'm going to create a new internal order for real. Okay, so define order types. The path for this is IMG, controlling internal orders, order master data, define order types, just execute. So these are the orders that are available in the SAP system. So these are all the SAP standard, and this is the one that we have created. Suppose if you see over here 0100, right? If you see over here 0100, just double click on that. You can see a settlement profile. The settlement profile is important in the case of real internal order. And of course, we have seen this entire information there itself. Okay. Okay. So, but whereas in the case of statistical internal order, this is the statistical internal order we have created. When you go in details, you don't require a settlement profile. That's the basic difference between internal order and real internal order from the order type configuration perspective. Going back, I'm creating a new order type for real internal order. So what I'll say here, its order category is 1 because this is an internal order. The order category, based on the order category, system understands whether it is a production order, internal order, or what order it is. So order category 1, just continue. Now here I will say 12 real orders, so RO, real internal order. And object class is overheads, and we don't have settlement profile yet, so I'm not going to assign here. Once I have the settlement profile, either I can come back to here and assign it, or we have a step over there also we can assign. That we will see next. Now, to this real internal order, are we posting any revenue transactions? If that is the case, you will have to select this. This is basically for revenue postings. Okay, if you don't have revenue posting, no need to select. Of course, status profile is going to be the same, and I want to keep release immediately. Residence period, I will say 3 months. I want to keep this 3 months after the closing of the internal order. Okay, I'm just saving now. Number range not processed, that's fine. Just enter, save it. So we have got a real internal order type. And to this, we require a settlement profile that we are going to create little later.
Nanda,
Yeah.
Residence time you said 3 months. So after 3 months, we cannot settle this internal order to any.
The internal order will not be available for you to use after 3 months because we have mentioned it as 3 months, right? If you see over here, reorganizing an object normally requires three steps: setting the delete flag. So first it requires a delete flag. Okay, after closing we need to keep this as a delete flag. Setting the final deletion indicator cannot be reset. Reorganizing, writing the object to a sequential data set and physically deleting it from the system. Residence time 1 determines the time interval in calendar months that must elapse between setting the delete flag, step 1, and setting the deletion indicator in step 2. So it means what is the normal time that you want to consider to make the internal order to be deleted. That is what this thing. And once that is done, if I keep 2 months over here, after 2 months the internal order will be deleted from the system. That is the meaning of it. So normally we don't enter that part, so I've just entered 3 months over here and save it. Got it? Okay, save it. And we don't have a number range assigned here. We can do it from here, or you can go and do the same thing in the next step. Okay, maintain number range for orders. Path is going to be the same, just execute. Now these are the internal order numbers available. If you want, you can choose, or if you want a different one, you can create your own. In order to create your own group, just select this, change groups. Here you have an option to create. You can create a number range over here and you can assign the same thing. Otherwise, you can use the existing one. Either the way is fine. If you want, you can use the existing one, or if you want, you can create using this. Okay. What is our order type? 12 RO. So 12 RO would be somewhere in the not assigned. Yeah, see, not assigned here. 12 R. So keep the cursor on the 12 RO, select and double click on the 01. It will go and sit over here and save it. Okay, save it. That's it. Now, if you see, the order will have a number range. If you go back to the order type and you can see, select here, go into detail, you can find the number range assigned to it. Or you can do it from here also. You can select it, go here and assign it over here. Okay, that's about the order type and the number range. This is the step, these are the steps that we have considered even in the case of statistical internal order. But what are the additional steps required on the real internal order? So let us go here into the actual postings. Here, settlement. Okay. Now, settlement, maintain settlement profile. We will just discuss something over here, then we will create our own settlement profile. So maintain settlement profiles. The path for this is IMG controlling internal orders, actual postings, settlement, and maintain settlement profiles. Just execute here. double click on maintain settlement profile. Earlier we have seen 20 as a settlement profile. Select the same thing, go into detail. Now, the important point is the allocation structure. Source structure is not required. This is required in the other case. I will tell you that we will discuss that later. And PA transfer structure is required. Of course, source structure is required in the case of byproduct joint product cases. And PS transfer structure is required in the case of COPA. So we are not going to settle anything to the COPA. So no need of this. What is your object type? I mean, where are you settling this to? Okay. So this is what a default object. Now coming to the indicator, 100% validation. We want we want the system to validate completely before it gets processed. Then we have seen this part already: percentage settlement, equivalence number, amount settlement. These you can see while you're creating the settlement rule. We have seen this part in our AUC settlement case. Okay, so similarly the same thing we have over here. And variance to costing based COPA, this is required in the case of COPA. Coming to the valid receivers, these are the different receivers we have. Now, where do you want to settle this? That requires to be kept it as either in the optional or required. But suppose I mention it as a cost center, and if I mention it as not allowed, system will throw up an error while settling the internal order. So whatever the object that we are settling to, that has to be kept either in the optional or in the required. Or you can keep everything in the optional, there is no problem at all. But the important thing is the object which you are considering in the settlement should be kept either in the optional or required. It should not be kept under settlement not allowed. Otherwise system will throw up an error. So what does it mean if I want to consider now, if I want to consider sales order, I cannot settle because sales order is kept under settlement not allowed. So you can select all of them in the optional. There is no problem at all. Now in the settlement, what is the document type do you want to consider? What is the document type that you want to consider? When does this require? If you are settling, say in our example, this is a real object and we are settling to a cost center. So it means internal order to cost center. Now when you observe both internal order and cost centers, these two are the objects in the controlling. So what is happening? We are moving the values from internal order to the cost center. So since these two are there within the controlling, so you will have a controlling document, you will not have a finance document. It means when you are settling within the controlling area, there you don't require any finance document. But what if you are settling the internal order to fixed assets? We have one scenario. From internal order, you can settle the amount to AUC, and once the asset is ready, from AUC to the main asset. Of course, we have already seen AUC to the main asset, but we have not seen the internal order to AUC. Okay, so when you are settling the internal order to AUC, AUC is nothing but an asset. Asset is part of finance. It means from controlling, from internal order, you are moving to the stock, you are moving to the value, you are moving the value to the fixed asset. Fixed asset is there in finance. It means the settlement is happening, the settlement is happening external to the controlling area. Settlement is happening to finance. So since it is an external to the controlling, there you require a document type, because this document type will have a document number and system will pick up the number range from this document type when you are settling from controlling to the other modules. So maximum number of distribution rules, we have already seen this, right? So in the settlement rule, how many line items do you require? Based on the maximum number of distribution rules, you can see that. And similarly, the same thing, residence in time. How many months you want to keep this in the system after the internal order is closed. Okay, that's about this thing. So this is not our own settlement profile. In order to create, let us go into new entries and create. Okay, so double click on maintain settlement profiles, go into new entries. I'll just say 12 RO settlement. Right. So we don't have allocation structure. Okay, so that requires to be created first. Okay, let us create that. Otherwise, in the meantime, let us keep this thing ready. So default object type, it is not required. This thing mentioning over here is not required. You can just keep it as, or even if you blank, keep that blank, there is no problem at all. So just I'm selecting cost center and I have to make sure cost center should be allowed. So I will keep everything in the optional except the cost center, so that we can see an error. And GL is also required when you are settling the internal order to the external, I mean AUC. So I'm keeping everything optional except the cost center because I want to show you the error. Now I can use the same same settlement profile for settling to the AUC also. Then I'm keeping here the document number, residence in, and maximum number of, say, enter an allowed receiver and account assignment default. So here cost center. So when I remove here, yeah, here it is expecting percentage equivalence. I'm selecting all of them, press enter. That's it. I'm not keeping the settlement not required in the case of cost center. I'll show you the impact of it. Now I'm just saving. So we have not selected cost center here. I'll show you the impact of it. Now save it. I'm selecting the percentage. I'm selecting these three things, selecting save. So the default objective type is not a mandatory field. You can keep that as a blank also. Just saving back. Now we require allocation structure. So let's create that allocation structure. You can assign the settlement profile to order type here in this tab. So enter settlement profile in order type. What is our order type? This one, you just select 12 RO. You can select, you can assign it over here, or you can do it directly in the order type configuration, the one what we have seen earlier. Here also we can do the same thing. 12 RO, double click here, you can see the same thing. Back. Now what is required? We required to create an allocation structure. Okay, maintain allocation structure path is going to be the same. Now In the case of maintain allocation structure, we require one point that we will discuss now. Okay. Now maintain allocation structure path is the same, just execute. Now here one important point is the settlement cost element that we will see now. Okay, I'm going in order to have our own going into new entries, I will say real order RO allocation structure for IO. Press enter. What is this allocation structure? What is this allocation structure? Allocation structure basically allocates the type of the expenses. Now we will discuss. I'm just selecting the allocation structure, double click on assignments. Go to new entries. What are the different assignments we have? I will say first revenue transactions. I will have revenue transactions and I will have expenses. Within the expenses, within the revenue, again, you can segregate if you want. Like what way? Suppose in the case of expenses, instead of just mentioning as expenses, you can segregate like direct expenses, administration expenses, office expenses, sales expenses. Like that, you can segregate further. Similarly, in the case of revenue, you can say direct sales, indirect sales, other revenue. Like that, you can create as many assignments you want, you can create. What it says basically. Now, if I have just a revenue, I mean just one assignment for revenue, just press enter, select the revenue, and here it is in the yellow mark. It is saying as incomplete. It becomes a green, then that becomes a complete. Now select revenues. Now source. Suppose if I say direct sales, what are my GLs talking about direct sales? If I say office expenses, what are my GLs relevant to office? Those are to be mentioned here in the source. Now, selecting the revenue, double click on source. Okay, what are my cost elements for revenue? You can give a range or you can have a cost element group. You can create a cost element group here also, like how in the same passion. I'm just creating a name, a code for the cost element group. As usually, I will have to go here into what do you call extras on the menu bar, cost element group, and just say as change. Now create the object. Yes. So revenue, I will say revenue. Now what are my cost elements? Now keep your cursor here in this and just select cost elements, and here you can choose your cost elements also. I'm selecting here. I want to see what are my cost elements in the case of revenue. I have three series. So what I will do, I will say 3 lakhs to 3 lakh 99,999. I can see the totals. Just say back. This is in the case of revenue. Again, I'm double clicking on the assignments. Now you can see here, red, green. Now expenses. Again, I'm going into the source, select expenses, double click on source. So I'll say 4 lakhs to 4 lakh 99,999. I'm just giving a range here. Going back to the assignment. Now I have these two assignments, and for these two assignments, I have assigned sources. It means what I'm telling the system, what I'm telling to this program, I'm telling the system, these are the assignments and revenues are these, expenses are these. And what are my revenue GLs? What are my expenses GLs? I have mentioned here. Now, where do you want me to settle this? How do you want me to settle this? That is what we will have to mention over here. Settlement cost elements. This is not an assessment. This is a settlement. So select the revenue. Okay. And first, what is the sequence you have to do? First, select the revenue, double click on source, assign the number range, again, double click on the settlement cost element. So double click here and you can see over here. So what is the receiver object and how do you want to settle? You are settling it by secondary cost element, settlement cost element, or you want to do it by cost element? How do you want to do? So in order to make this thing happen, go into new entries. Now here receiver categories. Now you check here. I'm just selecting this. Now you have multiple objects here. You have multiple receiver objects. These are the receiver objects you have. In the case of AUC, we will have to use, in the case of cost center, we will have to use this. Now, how do you want to do this? Do you want to go by cost element? It means original cost element. I mean revenue cost element, or you want to create a different settlement cost element. So if you want to create a settlement cost element, as usually we will have to create this in the in FS00. There are again two different kinds of settlement cost element that we will discuss little later. Okay, now at the moment what I'm saying, I'm just selecting by cost element, press enter. Okay, going back to the assignment, just select the expenses, double click on source, assign the GLs, then double click on settlement cost element. You can assign it over here. So again, new entries, select cost center by cost element. Okay, I'm just saving. So ultimately, how are I going to do? So once you are there in the allocation structure, you will be going into the new entries, giving your allocation structure code along with the description, select your allocation structure, double click on assignments, create your assignments, press enter, select each assignment, double click on the source, assign the relevant GLs, double click on the settlement cost element, give the receiver categories, select either cost element or secondary cost element. Settlement secondary cost element. We don't have any secondary second cost element, so you cannot see there. Then once you are done with first assignment, again double click on assignments, pick up the second one, double click on source, assign the range, double click on second cost elements, settlement cost element, give the receiver category, select either primary cost element or secondary cost element, just save. Like that you will have to do. Okay, now we have got the allocation structure. Where do we need to assign this? We need to assign to the settlement profile. In the settlement profile, so again, double click on the execute the maintain settlement profile. Maintain settlement profile, double click on this. And here as is 12 RO, go into details and assign the allocation structure. RO. Okay, save it. Now come back to the allocation structure again. So before we get into the allocation structure, here we have maintain settlement cost elements. Path is the same thing, just execute. Create primary settlement cost element, change primary and secondary settlement cost element, create secondary settlement cost elements. So here, what is primary settlement cost element? What is secondary, create secondary cost element? When do we use the secondary cost element. When do you need, I mean, within the secondary cost elements, we have two categories that I think we will discuss in the next scenario, not at the moment, because maybe you may be confused with that. That's fine. Okay, now coming back to the allocation structure, execute here, RO and assignment. Here we have these many. Now, why do we require different assignments? So first I'm selecting revenue, selecting the source. I have this range, and in the case of settlement, I can use different category. It means I can settle all my revenues to one category, receiver category, all expenses to a different receiver category. It means based on the assignment, I can settle it to different categories. And the other point is, for all my revenues, I want to go by primary cost element, and all my expenses, I want to go by settlement cost element. I can do that as well. Okay, so that assignment will differentiate. How do you want to consider? Suppose you don't have that at all. Whatever it is, whether it is an expenses, income, whatever it is going to be the same. Then you don't require these two assignments for revenues and expenses. You just create one. It takes care of both revenues and expenses, and you can settle it the same way. You can do that way also. Okay, so that is the meaning of this allocation structure. How are you allocating? I'm allocating revenues to cost center. I'm allocating expenses to profitability segment. I can do that. That is what allocation structure. We are allocating the funds to different. Out of the total internal order amount, how are you allocating? I'm allocating some to cost centers, some amount to profitability segment, some amount to other internal order or something else. I can do that. So that is the reason why we call it as allocation structure. Any questions? Okay, so let us go and post the transactions. Now FB50, no, before we go and post the transaction, we need to create an internal order. First, we need to create an internal order. What is the transaction code? KO01 is the code. KO01. Of course, we have seen the path already. Double click on this, take your controlling area and order type as is 12 RO. Press enter. I will say real internal order. You can keep your profit center or you can do anything. Okay, and here I'm not selecting the statistical order. This is by default release because we have entered. Now, this requires a settlement rule. Okay, I'm just saving now. Go to change here, one all zeros 24, press enter, go to settlement rule, select settlement rule. You can do from here or you can do it from there also. I mean, from the original transaction. Now you see, if you see over here, this is the important point for us now. Now, if you see over here, you can see all of them. You can see all of them, but you're not finding the cost center. You're not finding the cost center. Can you see any cost center over here? CTR is not available here. Why? Because of our configuration. So I'm going to here, settlement profile, going back to the settlement profile, maintain settlement profile, as is this. Now here I'm selecting optional, save it, back. Now I'm going back to KO02, enter settlement rule. Now I can see that. Now you can see cost center. Just select the cost center, and to which cost center do you want to settle? You need to assign it over here. Which cost center do you want to consider? I want to consider 1500, and I will say 100%. Okay, just save it. That's it. So we have got the internal order, and we have also maintained the settlement rule. So now what it does in this case is, so the moment we have an internal order, okay, we have got an internal order. To this settlement rule is mentioned as this thing, cost center and settlement receiver. Now, what is the order type for this internal order? System checks that first. What is the order type to this internal order? This is the internal order type. It goes and picks up what is the settlement profile. Within the settlement profile, it checks what is the object it is settling. Okay, it is settling to the cost center. There are different optionals, right? And it comes back and checks, yes, cost center is there. Okay, fine. Then what it does, it goes into the allocation structure, and whatever the transactions we have posted into internal order picks, it picks up there, it picks up from the allocation structure, and it checks where this needs to be settled, whether that settlement rule is matching to this settlement rule. It checks that. Once this is matching, then it executes in the settlement profile, the settlement run. Otherwise system will throw up an error. Okay, so what my point is, here I have entered as a cost center, but when you see over here in the settlement profile, in the allocation structure, execute in execute the allocation structure, RO assignment. If the transaction is within this, it goes and checks what is here. If the receiver category is cost center and they're also cost center, then that's fine, it allows. But if you have fixed asset here and their cost center, then system will throw up an error while posting the settlement run. Any questions? And you can assign as many receiver categories you want. You can assign all categories, but what system does is, whatever the cost center whatever the category we have here, system will consider that only. Now if you want to allocate cost center and internal order, system considers both of them, but you need to mention the percentage, how much portion you want to allocate to cost center, how much portion of the amount you want to allocate to internal order. You can do that as well. Okay, once everything is done, just save it. So system accordingly executes the settlement profile. Any questions?
No, no.
Okay, now we'll post a transaction FB50. So 03/13/2019, and I will say 4 lakhs debit credit, and I will say 1,20,000 or 2,20,000. 1,20,000. I'll say 1 lakh. So you can now just select internal order. You can just select internal order. Okay. Order select it over here. I can select 12 RO and I can see this order. Since it is a real order, it does not require any cost center. Now, the moment I say system accepts it, what it is, okay, I think there is some problem with FB50. So I'll go into F-01 or FB01. Okay, 03 13 2019 SA 40. I'm saying 4 lakhs. I'll say 1 lakh. And here I can say internal order 1 lakh 24. And I can enter some cost center also. Of course, this is your real internal order and 50. I'm just entering to show you something in the cost center report. 1,20,000, press enter, and 13 2019. I'm just saving now. Line item don't balance in group currency. We are trying to post a journal entry where the line item do not balance in group currency with the following details. Why it is saying? Some other issue. A posting without balance line item is not possible. You are trying to post a journal entry where the line items don't balance in group currency with the following details. Amount, currency key INR. What is the problem in this? Let me just take 10,000. Go to document again, simulate. Now let me see why it is saying. You're trying to post a journal entry where the line items don't balance in group currency. Why it is saying with the following details. Because both sides the amount is same, but why it is saying as is not matching. Mhm.
Nanda, can you try like on a second line item, you just put the stars, right?
Of course, even there also
Yeah.
it will become the
Sometimes,
same.
that it just act, funny, but, you put, just 10,000 there and see if that instead of star. You didn't remember, Rana, he did one time like that.
It's a strange.
It shouldn't happen, right?
Mm,
Display currency, what is that display currency?
no idea. Let us see. Let me post using F-02 because the other day we posted using this transaction. Let's see. I'm putting the internal order and here 51,20,000. It's a bug, standard bug. Go to document, simulate and save. same problem. Amount and currency key. Line items don't balance in group currency. This is going to be a standard bug, standard error, standard issue from the SAP front, because it has to pick up uh, from the exchange rates FB08. Sorry, uh, what is that? Uh, what is the T code? I don't remember.
About what?
OB08. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. M currency USD to INR. USD to INR is this much. Okay.
But Nanda, that is what it's showing, in the error message 46,096.
Yeah, this same amount is
So
considering.
I mean, it doesn't really matter what exchange rates you have put here.
Correct. I'm putting now 50. Let us see. I mean, there is no problem on that front. This is perfect. There is no issue. But why it is saying debit and credit? Amount is, when the amount is same, both have to have the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Translation, exchange rates. That's it. Nowhere we have mentioned debit or credit. We don't ever mention any debit or credit in any of the transactions.
Nanda, maybe we have to just put the posting fee 40 and 50. I don't
Entered
recall
for,
we did.
no,
I
we have
don't
entered
recall.
40, 50 only, right?
Oh, really? Okay.
Here, 40, 50.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Maybe it is throwing the wrong message because you also in a controlling object you also give internal order and also cost center.
No, I did not enter now. Just I have entered only the internal order.
Internal order. Okay.
And moreover, this is not the problem.
Right.
You can enter as many objects you want, you can enter. System will pick up only one as a real object, remaining all will be considered as a statistical. That's not a problem at all.
So this definitely be a bugs.
Correct. Because amount is same,
Yeah.
both
Right.
sides.
Right.
Then why system is saying?
Hmm.
Okay, I think I will check once and we will have to communicate this to the person. Raghu? Raghu?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you take this up with the person? Because the amount is same, both on the debit and credit is same, but still system is saying line item don't balance in group currency. It
Screenshot,
should not
please.
say that. Yeah, I'll take the
అది
screenshot.
స్క్రీన్ షాట్ అది మీకు ఈమెయిల్ గ్రూప్ మెయిల్ మన ఇద్దరికి సీసీ పెట్టి పంపించాను కదా దాంట్లో రిప్లైలు కొట్టండి కదా
ఓకే
నేను ఫాలో అప్ చేస్తాను
Yeah, because it's a
weird కదా
Yeah.
Do not balance in group currency. అది ఏంటి అసలు ఐఎన్ఆర్కి ఎట్లా అవుతుంది అది?
ఐఎన్ఆర్కి వెళ్తుంది గ్రూప్ కరెన్సీ.
ఓ సారీ.
కాకపోతే మన పాయింట్ ఏంటి అంటే why this the error is cropping. We should not have this error.
Nanda, if you can, change the group currency from Indian rupees to some other.
No, again the whole configuration gets changed.
Oh.
The whole thing gets changed again. That's the problem.
జీమెయిల్లో పంపించేసేయండి అది. అంటే మళ్ళీ నేను సపరేట్గా లాగిన్ అయ్యి మళ్ళీ చేయాలి. డైరెక్ట్ మీకు స్క్రీన్ షాట్ పెట్టచ్చు.
I'll also check once. Let's see what it says, but I'm feeling like it's a standard bug. So you sent me the other day with what here? Okay, this SAP, right? Okay. Okay, fine. I sent across to him. Okay, I think we cannot do anything if this is the case. You cannot post any transaction. We cannot do anything if this does not work.
Nanda, like remember, that I asked you a question about that. Like from internal order, there is a negative amount which I wanted to settle to the AUC.
Correct.
Somehow it's not getting, it's not getting posted to the AUC, and I'm getting the error message plus and minus.
You said negative balances have been posted in the previous months, but it is not happening the current month.
Right.
So probably some transaction. So probably the configuration might have been changed. That revenue postings might have been deselected, or in the transactions probably, I mean, did you see the allocation structure?
So
Do you have that GL there in that?
Did that in the field that you had, the residence time, does that impact?
No, because it is active still. That internal order is active. Internal order we have not closed, right?
Yes, it's not closed.
So that does not have any impact. So residence will come into the picture only once you close the internal order.
Okay.
But I feel like there is some problem on the posting side. So you just check allocation structure whether this particular GL is assigned there. Now, if you remember, we have created 2 assignments, one for revenue, the other for expenses.
Yes.
If the GL, the one what you've picked up, if that is not there in that group, then system will not pick up that at all.
So if it is negative, it has to say revenue there?
Yep. Yeah. Basically it is a negative. I mean, not negative exactly, I can say. Negative the revenue has to be selected, but the particular GL should be maintained in the assignment. should be assigned in any of the GLs. I mean, forget about the positive or negative value, but whatever the GL we have, that has to be there within the allocation structure.
Okay. Okay.
But since we have a negative, what does it mean? The revenue posting should be selected in the order type.
In the order type. Okay.
Correct. So I think Raghu, this you need to take this up with the person, because it is not at all happening anything. It's perfect from our end. Just check. Raghu, okay? Okay, I think we cannot do anything without that.
ఎప్పుడేదో వైరస్
Okay, right. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. Thank you. Bye.